Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this lesson. Today, we're focusing our attention on the essential second stage of photosynthesis, the Calvin cycle, which you might also know as the light-independent reactions. If you've ever wondered exactly how a plant takes literal thin air and turns it into the sugar that essentially fuels all life on Earth, well, you were in the exact right place.
Let's quickly look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with an introduction to the Calvin cycle. Then we're going to walk step by step through its three phases: carbon fixation, reduction, and regeneration. Finally, we'll summarize the inputs and products and zoom out to look at the big picture.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Introduction to the Calvin cycle.
Now, before we figure out how plants actually build glucose, we really need to ground ourselves in what just happened in the previous step. Let's do a quick review. What did the light-dependent reactions produce? They gave us ATP, NADPH, and oxygen. This is absolutely crucial to keep in mind, because that ATP and NADPH are going to provide the vital energy we need to build glucose during this next stage.
So, what exactly is the Calvin cycle? To put it simply, it's a series of reactions that uses carbon dioxide, ATP, and NADPH to produce glucose. And here's the kicker. It does all of this without directly requiring light. That's exactly why it's called the light-independent reaction. But, and this is a really important distinction, even though it doesn't need a direct beam of sunlight shining on it, it depends entirely on the ATP and NADPH we just talked about. It's still using the energy captured from the sun, just indirectly.
Let's pinpoint exactly where this biological manufacturing plant is located. The Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma of the chloroplast. The stroma is basically the fluid-filled space surrounding the thylakoids. This fluid is the exact spot where glucose is actively built from carbon dioxide.
To understand how this whole thing works, we're going to break the cycle down into three distinct, manageable phases. First, we have carbon fixation. Second, reduction. And third, regeneration. As we go through these, just remember that each specific phase is preparing molecules for the very next step, all the way until glucose can finally be produced.
Okay, Section 2, Phase 1, Carbon fixation. For Phase 1 to even kick off, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere has to enter the leaf through tiny pores called stomata. Once inside the stroma, that carbon dioxide needs to combine with a 5-carbon molecule called RuBP. But it can't just do this on its own. It needs help. And that brings us to a really remarkable enzyme called Rubisco. Rubisco is the matchmaker here. It helps carbon dioxide combine with RuBP. Fun fact, Rubisco is actually one of the most abundant enzymes on Earth. So the huge takeaway here is that without Rubisco, this first step, carbon fixation, literally could not happen. When Rubisco helps carbon dioxide combine with RuBP, something very fleeting happens. A temporary 6-carbon molecule forms, but it is highly, highly unstable. Because it's so unstable, it almost immediately splits into 2 3-carbon molecules called PGA, or 3-phosphoglycerate. And that split? That marks the successful completion of carbon fixation.
Moving on to Section 3, Phase 2, reduction. This is where we start gaining energy.
During the reduction phase, that ATP and NADPH we produce during the light-dependent reactions finally go to work. They step in to provide the energy needed to convert those PGA molecules into a much higher energy molecule called G3P, which is sometimes called PGAL. We actually call this phase reduction because, in chemical terms, the molecules are gaining energy. G3P is a 3-carbon sugar molecule, and honestly, it's the star product of the Calvin cycle. In fact, some of these G3P molecules actually leave the cycle at this exact point. Why? Because 2 G3P molecules will combine to form one single glucose molecule. Plants also use this G3P to build starch, cellulose, and other carbohydrates. So that's our big key idea here. The Calvin cycle produces G3P, which is then used to make glucose and a ton of other essential organic molecules.
Next up is Section 4, Phase 3, Regeneration. We have to keep the cycle going.
We have to remember, this is a cycle. Not all of the G3P leaves to become glucose. Most of those G3P molecules actually stay right there in the cycle. Here, ATP provides the energy to rearrange these molecules and regenerate RuBP. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is RuBP regenerated? It absolutely must be regenerated because it's the very molecule that accepts new carbon dioxide every single time the cycle repeats. Without regeneration, carbon fixation would completely grind to a halt, and no additional glucose could be made.
And this brings us to another really important key idea. Once the cycle successfully builds glucose,
what do plants actually do with it? Well, glucose is incredibly versatile. Plants use it to produce ATP for themselves through cellular respiration. They store that energy as starch for later. They use it to build cellulose for their cell walls, and they make other carbohydrates and organic molecules out of it. Ultimately, photosynthesis is producing glucose to provide both the energy and the raw building materials needed for the plant to grow and survive. All right, Section 5, Cycle Inputs and Products. Let's tally up what goes in and what comes out. The Calvin cycle strictly requires carbon dioxide, ATP, and NADPH. These three molecules are the non-negotiable ingredients. Together, they provide both the carbon, which we get from the CO2, and the energy, which comes from the ATP and NADPH that are needed to actually build these sugars. So, what are the products? The Calvin cycle produces G3P, which, as we know, is used to build glucose, but it also produces ADP and NADP+. And the really amazing thing here is that this ADP and NADP+ don't just disappear. They simply return to the light-dependent reactions, where they get recharged and recycled right back into ATP and NADPH. This perfectly highlights the incredible relationship between the two stages of photosynthesis. The Calvin cycle fundamentally depends on the light-dependent reactions. The light-dependent reactions provide the ATP and NADPH, and the Calvin cycle uses those molecules to produce sugars. Neither stage can function properly without the other one. They are a perfectly paired biological system.
Finally, Section 6, the big picture.
Let's methodically walk through this 6-step summary to really lock the sequence of the Calvin cycle into your memory. Step 1, CO2 enters the cycle. Step 2, carbon fixation occurs when it combines with RuBP. Step 3, using ATP and NADPH, PGA converts into G3P. Step 4, some of that G3P leaves the cycle to go build glucose. Step 5, the remaining G3P regenerates RuBP. And Step 6, the cycle repeats. To cement everything we've learned, let's contrast the two halves of photosynthesis using this comparison. The light-dependent reactions occur over in the thylakoids, while the Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma. The first requires light, the second does not directly require light. The first produces ATP and NADPH. The Calvin cycle uses that ATP and NADPH. The first splits water and releases oxygen, while the Calvin cycle uses carbon dioxide to produce G3P, which is then used to build glucose.
So, here is the ultimate big picture of photosynthesis. It occurs in two connected, sequential stages. The light-dependent reactions capture sunlight to produce ATP and NADPH. Then, the Calvin cycle takes over, using that ATP and NADPH to produce G3P. And finally, that G3P is used to make glucose. Working together in total harmony, these stages perform a literal miracle of nature. They convert raw light energy into stored chemical energy.
To wrap up our explainer today, let's just review our course summary. The Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma. Carbon dioxide enters through carbon fixation, aided by that trusty enzyme Rubisco, which combines it with RuBP. ATP and NADPH provide the energy to produce G3P, some of which goes off to build glucose, while the rest regenerates RuBP so the cycle can keep going. But I want to leave you with a provocative thought. What happens if a plant lives in a harsh, scorching desert? If it opens its stomata to let carbon dioxide in during the day, it might lose all its water, dry out, and die. So how do those plants survive? Well, that is exactly what we're going to uncover in our next lesson on alternative photosynthetic pathways, where we'll look at C3, C4, and CAM plants. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.